Of the problems we're facing today, our increasing inability to effectively communicate with each other might be the most problematic. Obviously, other problems exist, such as war and famine and political corruption and so on. And yes, these problems need solutions, but at the root of all the solutions that we can or will or might find for such problems lies our ability to effectively communicate with each other, and especially to communicate with people that we disagree with. Historically, I imagine many of the solutions we have managed to find were derived by groups of people that didn't always agree with each other. More so, I imagine they were devised by folks that often disagreed, and because of their disagreements, they even benefited. They were able to navigate through their dissimilarities and arrive at more interesting ideas because of them. Unfortunately, today, we like to isolate ourselves to our own systems of belief, surrounding ourselves with people and circumstances that only reflect our own ideas back to us, validating our preconceptions, while, isolating ourselves from other ideas and failing to have conversations with people that disagree with us. This is horribly unfortunate. To an extent, we're this is an analogy, but we're behaving a little bit like the townsfolk in the story of Frankenstein. So you have the townsfolk marching through the streets with their pitchforks and torches, intent to destroy Frankenstein for the monster they presumed him to be. They disagreed with him. He was different. He didn't fit their mold. He acted differently. They saw him as a body comprised of a mass of corpses and became fearful. Fair enough. But they were wrong to respond fearfully and destructively. They failed to try to understand him as a unique individual, different than themselves, perhaps with interesting ideas or at least some capacity to contribute differently to society. And to an extent, we do something similar. This isn't overarching. This is just something that seems to be developing more and more. But for some reason, especially when we discuss this along ideological or political dimensions, when people appear different or express different things, we often attribute to them false characteristics of monstrousness. And that's a little bit of an extreme point, but to an extent that is what we're doing. For example, if I were to say that I am a fan of Trump, one group of individuals would have quite the animosity toward me. If I were to say Biden is my dude, then another group would likewise have animosity for me. Just because of what I say, I isolate myself to one group and am perceived as somewhat monstrous by the other. To an extent, what this does is make the people I disagree with assume that I hold ideas that are also disagreeable. From one idea, they can extrapolate that I hold other disagreeable ideas. Not only that, but when people disagree with me and I express my ideas, they look for the worst that I am possibly saying, so that when I express one idea, they perceive it perhaps to be another, perhaps a more nefarious idea. And this goes both ways. It doesn't matter what side of anything you're on. It's simply the fact that when we disagree with things, when we perceive things to be monstrous, whether they are or they are not, we look for the worst that those things have to offer. Fair enough to do so, because where things are monstrous, danger lies. And if we can avoid that, then we should. And so it makes sense to look for the danger within monstrous ideas. At the same time, we turn a blind eye to the evil within our own ideas that we hold, maybe without proper contemplation, or other people that we agree with express, so that when an individual expresses an idea and we think we agree with them, we give that individual the benefit of the doubt. This dynamic blinds us to the failings of the ideas we agree with and the value within ideas that seem disagreeable. And to an extent, maybe evolutionarily, to respond this way, to hunt for evil where evil seems to be, and to give the benefit of the doubt to what appears to be good, makes sense, because you have a limited amount of resources and you can only do so much. So simplifying the process by holding prejudice and whatnot makes some sense. But in today's world, it seems to be rather destructive, because what we're doing is We look at other people, hear their ideas, look for the worst they have to offer, and then likewise assume the worst and have no desire to have a discussion, but we do have a desire to destroy the other person's perspectives. And we don't even do that very well. What we end up doing is we hear another person's perspective or idea, whatever, and we look for the weakest aspects of that expression so that we can attack it and destroy it. We effectively are attacking the support structures of the idea, and this is unfortunate for two reasons. One is the support structures are likely to hold the least value, and two, the support structures likely are not the intended essence of the expression that the individual is trying to communicate. Rather, if you attack the strongest component of an argument, that is more likely to be the intentions of the speaker. And even at the very least, if you attack that, one, you validate the other individual a little bit. You say to them, hey, I hear what you're saying and I still disagree with you. And two, you might find more value. When we can have disagreements with each other and when we can have discussions, despite these things, we can find ourselves in better positions. For one, when we have conversations with people we disagree with, we have the opportunity to stress test our ideas, to see if they're worth anything, to see if they hold up to alternative information, so that we can put our ideas out there and throw them away if they're crap, and validate them if they are correct. Given new information, it still holds up, then maybe you have a good idea. One thing that makes this difficult is we fervently hold to our ideas. Often enough, when our ideas become attacked, we ourselves feel attacked, and this makes it very difficult to have discussions because we get defensive and reactive versus conversational. We end up seeking to destroy rather than to distribute information and to learn the other person's perspective. This is a poor way to go into a conversation, to attach ourselves to our ideas. Rather, we should think of our ideas as objects that we use to perceive and understand the world, objects that are constantly under a state of evolving and becoming better and being replaced by new ones, and such and such forth. Because through our ideas we can arrive at better ideas, and if we have nothing but crap ideas, then our subsequent ideas and solutions will probably be of equal or lesser crap. I don't know. Yeah. Additionally, to the extent that we isolate ourselves to our own echo chambers of belief, we're adopting some sort of an idea where we don't want people to disagree with us. And to an extent, I can understand why. It's like, I'm already correct, and some of the things I hold as true seem self-evidently true, and the alternatives that another might express seem absolutely wrong. So why discuss those things? They're absolutely wrong. What they need to do is adopt my perspective. The danger of that is that neither you or I are always correct, and the probability that we hold some flawed misconceptions is extremely high. So to say on any idea that it is of superior quality to another, and to have that perspective, well, that's a flawed assumption, because any of our ideas could be flawed. We should operate from the axiom that it could be wrong. So we're open to the idea of testing it, and like I said, one way to do that is to open it up to conflicting information. So why do we want people to agree with us all the time? Firstly, if everybody did agree with us, it'd make for a pretty boring world. But secondly, we should want people to disagree with us, because it does afford us the opportunity to improve our ideas. We should want to bridge the gaps between what we believe to be true and what others believe to be true. The alternative to not having discussions and to need other people to accept our opinions is bloodshed, because if they won't agree with you or you won't agree with me, then what's the alternative? You must accept what I have to say, and if you don't, well, you're probably against me, so I must destroy you, which is unfortunate. That's the historical solution, and it's a bad solution, although maybe you could make a case for it being effective. If there was a group of KKK members and it's like, maybe. I don't know. It's a complicated issue. Either way, yeah, we need to accept people for disagreeing with us, and we should go into conversations with the intent to share information, not to defend our own information. And also go into conversations without the need to change people's minds. Go into the conversation, again, with the intent to share information. Trying to change people's minds only breeds frustration. Doesn't make people feel very good, and it impedes the conversation. Back to the idea of perceiving people's ideas as monstrous, another thing that it does is when we perceive people as monstrous and then they act, there is a greater chance that we will perceive subsequent action as validating our preconception that that individual group is monstrous. Take, for example, Frankenstein again. The townsfolk marched up to the windmill. Frankenstein's freaked out inside. They put torches up to his face and he freaks out. And they saw this as validating their preconception of his monstrousness, but indeed it was actually fear, which was simply misunderstanding of the response Frankenstein had to their communication, so to speak. And that's, again, kind of what's going on in society today. One person from one group expresses an idea and the other individual sees that as the worst it could possibly be, and then they behave in a way that validates the other person's conceptions that the other person is monstrous. And it's this back and forth where the response of the other is validating the preconceptions of the other. It's pretty confusing and doesn't help anything. It's horribly unfortunate because it just furthers our dedication to our ideas that other people are holding the wrong ideas and are of somewhat evil character. You know, I really don't know anything, but it does seem like this is a dynamic that is affecting society in our ability to have effective conversations with each other. So long as we want to be able to operate in domains of diversity, we have to be able to have difficult discussions with one another, not because people are rude or just trying to be disagreeable, but because in diversity, cultural, individual, life circumstances, opinions, whatever it is, diversity breeds disagreement. So unless you want society to be a homogeneous entity or a collective consciousness, the alternative is to well, I guess war would probably breed the homogeneity, but the alternative is to communicate, and it's desperately necessary. And if we can communicate, we'll be so much better off for it. Our ideas will be better, and our solutions will be of higher quality. We need to be able to reconcile and not assume too readily that people are monstrous or trying to be abrasive or rude or anything like that. Much of it could simply be the ignorance of one individual to another culture. And yeah, that being said, in difficult discussions, there's a huge responsibility on the speaker and the listener. You know, there's plenty of room for communication error. Language isn't perfect, and there's a tremendous amount of difference just between individuals, cultures, societies, countries, and the more and more spaced out we become, or the more and more different we are, the more and more diverse we are, the more opportunity there is perhaps for there to be offense. And we need to be able to navigate such things within conversations so that we don't become needlessly offended, or so we don't needlessly offend. As the listener, I should watch out for ways that I might be misunderstanding and subsequently become offended. And as the speaker, I should watch out for ways that the way I am communicating might needlessly offend or, become abrasive or whatever it might be, miscommunicate. Doesn't have to be just offensive. It could simply just be miscommunication. Look out for the ways where my words might mean one thing to another individual, and then the other individual should watch out how they're understanding the meaning of words. They might understand them incorrectly. How you go about a discussion, make this effective, is not the easiest thing to do. One method is to simply reflect what you think you hear back to the other individual, and to an extent, this is a very good solution. It's costly in time, it takes a while. It's like, oh, you said this, and they're like, yes, I said that, and so that at least extends the duration of the conversation by half. But whatever, being able to navigate this, whatever your solution might be, is absolutely necessary. And the more and more we isolate ourselves to our own echo chambers of belief, the more and more dangerous the situation becomes. Unless you want to put a computer in your brain and become a collective consciousness, or murder the people that disagree with you, which both are frightening solutions. the collective consciousness is interesting. You know, put a little chip inside your brain so everybody thinks the same thing relatively, or rather they're all connected so that, you know, my interests are not my interests, they're the collective's interests, so that your pain is my pain and my pain is your pain, so that we all have each other's best interests in mind, because, you know, it's not only that I'm comfy, it's that you're uncomfy, so likewise I cannot be comfy, so we need to all be comfy. I don't know. Anyways, that's all I have. And just food for thought, ways to think about having conversations, and the things that might make it more difficult and the things that might improve it. Are we perceiving people as monstrous when they really aren't? Are we misunderstanding people? Are we becoming offended when people attack our ideas? How do we perceive our ideas? Are we willing to stress test our ideas? These are all things we should consider when we are having difficult discussions. The objective of defending one's ideas so that it becomes or is victorious should not be the objective. The objective should be to find truth. And sometimes that truth can be contentious and frustrating, but that is the world we have to navigate if we want to be able to have effective conversations with people that disagree with us, not to just have conversations with people that hold our own opinions and validate what we already think to be true. Yeah, that is it. Bye.